All right, so G versus S. So general intelligence, or G, is thought, or at least this is how Spearman described it, is thought to be a capacity that provides an advantage on virtually any mental task. So he called it G because he's like, it's general. It applies to anything. It doesn't matter what task you're trying to perform. G is what's really going to underlie your ability to do that. So people who are trying to figure out whether there is a G or if S is a better description or something, they've used a statistical technique called factor analysis. And this is a procedure that is really computation heavy. That basically correlates each individual item on a test and your performance on that test across lots of different participants, and looks for common factors, factors that hang together, individual items that seem to all be predicting the same basic skill. So it's a statistical procedure rather than using our logic to figure out what items go together, or using our logic to make subtests or something like that. We're going to let a statistical procedure tell us which items naturally go together based on how people are, whoops, I just launched Word, that's good. So based on how people are responding. So what factor analysis has done is it's confirmed that there is a general intelligence factor that seems to be shared by all intelligence subtests. That people who are higher in the general intelligence factor seem to be higher on all the other subtests. They seem to go together. It's now we have to be a little bit careful because some tests depend more heavily on the general factor than others do. But G is present in all the subtests. That people with higher G tend to do better on any subtest. It's just that the correlations are stronger with some subtests than others. Specialized on intelligence, on the other hand, there may be certain things that you are more specialized for. Like some people are really good at math, or some people are really good at vocabulary, or some people are really good with spatial tasks, stuff like that. And so there might be some specialized components to intelligence. And so some people have said, even, Spearman acknowledged this when he invented the concept of G. And some people have said, a single number may really not give us a full picture of a person's intellectual skill sets, right? It's just a crude summary of an intellectual skill set that a person might have. We need to maybe take into consideration that, yeah, they've got, X level of general intelligence, but let's not forget, look, they have this peak number over here where this is like their specialty. This particular part of intelligence is really where they shine. So we're already starting to throw on the first slide a little bit of shade at just a G factor. But I wanted to show you what I mean by these factor analysis, the factor loading. So here's general intelligence G. So your score, so what this is representing is that an individual's score on G correlates really well with the different subsets of a test, right? So we've got fluid reasoning, comprehensive knowledge, visual processing, auditory processing, processing speed, short-term memory, long-term retrieval, quantitative ability. And you see that none of these factor loadings is less than 0.67. And if any of you have had any kind of stats class, you know that a correlation coefficient of 0.67 is enormous. 0.88 correlation between fluid reasoning and G, that's almost a perfect correlation. They're almost perfectly related. So these are really high numbers. These clearly G is related to all of these subtests. And then all of these subtests are correlated with subparts of those, right? So there's concept formation, analysis, synthesis, all the picture vocabulary, all these things down here are correlating with the subtests above them, and through that subtest above them correlating with G. And so G seems to underlie at a really strong correlational level. I think our lowest correlation on this whole page is this 0.55 between visual closure, visual processing, and then through that we go up to G. 0.55 is our smallest. If I got a 0.55 correlation coefficient in research that I did, I'd be like, wow, there's something wrong in my data. This is too good. Like we never get this kind of number. So these are really strongly correlated factors. And so this is held up as an argument that, well, see, G is so strongly correlated that it's probably underlying a lot of these factors. Now, having said that, though, there are some nuances that I wanted to address. One nuance is the difference between fluid and crystallized intelligence. You might have noticed right down here we have fluid reasoning correlating really well with G. Fluid intelligence versus crystallized intelligence. Let's see if this, things that would fall under crystallized just for fun would be things like comprehensive knowledge, object recognition, picture recognition. I'm mixing my things together. Picture vocabulary, oral vocabulary. Those are all examples of crystallized intelligence. So let's talk about these. Fluid intelligence is the ability to deal with novel problems. So you've never seen anything like this before, and you have to reason it out. And intelligence tests oftentimes have prompts that you maybe have never heard of before, and you have to figure out an answer to it. It tends to peak in early adulthood and then declines across the remaining lifespan. So early adulthood is our fastest fluid intelligence time. We come up with good solutions quickest when we are in young adulthood. Now, even a young adult may have times where their fluid intelligence is slower. Maybe they're really tired, they're experiencing depression, they're drunk, something like that. Fluid intelligence goes down. But in general, a person's highest, fastest fluid intelligence time is going to be early adulthood, and then it decreases. Crystallized intelligence, on the other hand, is comprised of all the acquired knowledge that you have. So like your vocabulary would be part of crystallized intelligence. The facts that you need for playing Jeopardy would be part of crystallized intelligence. This tends to increase with age. It's not surprising to think that, you know more words the older that you get. You know more facts the older that you get. And so crystallized intelligence is positively associated with age. So here's a little depiction of what's going on. So fluid is depicted in the orange. And so you see that it's increasing up until about age 30, and then it slowly starts to decrease. So by the time you're age 70, you're back to where you were at about age 20, maybe age 15, something like that, which is not the world's worst place to be, right? But it does decline. Whereas the blue line, which is crystallized, it continues to increase across your lifespan. The biggest change in fluid intelligence as we age is that we get a little slower at solving the problem. It's not that the problem is, maybe when you're 15, you might not come up with a solution to the problem because you don't have enough world knowledge and you don't know what's going on as well. By the time you're 70, you might just be slower. You still solve the problem, but you might just be slower at solving the problem. And so the difference is kind of nuanced. To say that a 70-year-old might be back to the level they were when they were 15 is kind of wrong. Because with their world experience, their crystallized knowledge, they're able to still solve the problem. It's just that it may take them a little bit longer. So what underpins our intelligence? What allows us to behave intelligently? Well, people who have higher G intelligence tend to display faster processing. So just to give you a vocabulary word here, inspection time is the term that they use to describe how much time a person takes to make a distinction, recognize that two stimuli are actually different from each other. There's a negative correlation between response time and intelligence scores. So people with higher intelligence scores tend to have lower inspection time. They don't have to spend as much time exploring the stimuli, really making their judgment. They can take a quicker glance at the two stimuli and see what the differences are. So negative correlation means higher G, lower inspection time. Lower G, higher inspection time, takes longer. This provides support for intelligence being based on processing speed. A lot of intelligence tests are timed. And so if you answer the question faster, you tend to get more points, so to speak, for that answer. And the logic of that is that processing speed implies that you have better access to information, that your fluid intelligence is higher. And so that's why it's oftentimes part of a test. Intelligence might really result from executive control, right? So people who have larger working memory capacities tend to perform better on tests of G. And we've talked about working memory capacity already in this class, that people vary on their working memory capacity, and that you can vary within yourself based on, how tired you are and things like that. And so larger working memory capacity seems to favor better performance on G. So it's possible that G, one of the reasons why it has so much influence on so many different subtests and stuff like that, is that it might be a combination of multiple things. It might be multiple capacities all coming together and being called G. So it might be things like processing speed. It might be working memory capacity. It might be how well organized your long-term memory store is. It might be a lot of things that are all sort of being harnessed all at one time to produce performance on an intelligence test. So when we talk about G being this one thing that contributes to all intelligent behavior, it might be one sort of process that's actually putting together a whole bunch of sub processes that are all working together to produce performance. There is a lingering and in some ways heated disagreement in the field of intelligence over really what G is, and how important it might be or not to the field of intelligence. So I'm telling you all of these things. I'm just telling you the information. That doesn't mean that it's a settled conversation. It's what is being argued by people who believe in G. So right now, it's not really super clear what exactly G is, whether it's informative, helpful, maybe discriminatory to talk about a single entity being in charge of intelligence. Okay, so this is a good time, I think, for me to stop, and we'll come back and talk about other kinds of intelligence that are not measured by the IQ test.